Attention, everyone. Love. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's City Council Candidate Town Hall. Our goal is for you, the voters, to hear directly from the candidates what their views are and why you should vote for them. At the Madison Center for Civic Engagement, we value robust and civil public debate that informs and engages people in our democracy. You can learn more about this Madison Center by following our social media or visiting our website jmu.edu/civic. We will also be hosting a candidate forum for the Harrisonburg School Board candidates next week on November 2nd in JMU's Memorial Hall. We hope to see you all there. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our partners. First, Shenandoah Valley Bicycle Coalition, who has traditionally hosted a candidate forum, graciously worked with us this year to get this event off the ground. The Breeze newspaper and its staff, including students from SMAD and BreezeTV, who are live streaming for our online audience. And lastly, the Citizen newspaper, who also partners for our Harrisonburg School Board candidate forum. Now I'd like to introduce our moderating team for the event. This is Dr. Kara Dillard, Interim Associate Director of the Madison Center for Civic Engagement. And beside her, we have Ms. Zia Fakiri and Ms. Kayla Brown, Politics and News staff at the Breeze.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm sorry. Thank you, Jason. In this forum, each candidate will begin with a 90-second opening statement. Then we will ask candidates a question and give them about 1 minute to respond. The moderator will guide the conversation so that all candidates have a chance to answer and engage and differentiate themselves from each other on the issues. We will do this at least 5 times, asking candidates questions on issues including housing, policing and crime, transportation, energy, and jobs. The candidates have not been given the questions in advance, but have been notified about the topic areas. At the end of the forum, we will give each candidate 90 seconds to answer a closing question, which they can also use as a summation of their views and values.
We encourage all the candidates to be civil with each other and to engage with the issues. We also encourage them to stay within time limits so that everybody gets a chance to speak. Our roles as moderators tonight are to remain impartial on the issues, but to provide a minimal amount of fact-checking if we need it, to manage our time limits so that everybody can leave here around 7 o'clock, and also to encourage our candidates to stay on topic. We'd now like to welcome our candidates to the stage. We have Danny Fleming, Monica Robinson, Marshall Reddick, and Rick Nagel. You can clap for them. Give them some moral support. These 4 candidates are competing against each other for 2 open slots on City Council. We also have, last but not least, Christopher Jones, who is running unopposed for a separate City Council seat that will expire in 2024.
Prior to the start of this forum, the order of opening statements was determined by alphabetical order. I'll remind each candidate they have 90 seconds for their opening statement. Our timekeeper will flash you a card when you have 1 minute remaining, 30 seconds remaining, and then when time's up. At that time, please stop talking. Mr. Fleming, would you please start by telling the voters who you are and what's important to you?
So I'm Danny Fleming, and I really love this city. It's inspiring to me, the people are inspiring to me, and it's why I live here. If you spend 3 minutes with me, you'll know how much that's true. So I spent a lifetime working on the issues of education, housing, economic community development, and building responsive organizations and governance. You know what I discovered? That Harrisonburg's pretty good at problem solving. We build consensus and we move forward. We're not afraid to step into difficult issues, put our values to work. We've done a pretty good job. I'm guessing that's why you're in Harrisonburg, and why people keep moving to Harrisonburg. To steal a phrase, there's nothing wrong with Harrisonburg that can't be fixed by what's right with Harrisonburg. So I was born and raised here, and I know the value of service responsibility, caring for our community and our neighbors, being good stewards of our resources. That's part of our DNA. And I've been listening to you and thousands of folks across this city and know we're facing challenges. I also know you want someone of experience, who's knowledgeable, and ready to start on day one. Someone already working side by side with you. I believe I'm that candidate, and I hope I can earn your vote. Thank you.
Now, Ms. Robinson.
That's a trick question.
No, but.
Just thought I'd ask. Good evening. I am Monica Robinson. My family moved to Harrisonburg when I was 10, and I've called the city home ever since. I graduated from Harrisonburg High School, then from Blue Ridge Community College, and JMU twice, with a Bachelor of Arts in History, and then with a Master's in Education. Then I pursued my doctorate in special education at Walden University. I raised one son here, and now I am parenting my 2 grandchildren and caring for my mother. I have seen this city grow from a sleepy town organized around agriculture and a small liberal arts school to a university town with all kinds of diversity. My own multi-generational family and working as a teacher with families across our community keeps me tuned into the resources our city offers, as well as gaps in resources that need to be filled if our city is going to live up to its full potential. I am currently the executive director of the Shenandoah Valley Black Heritage Project, and I've worked with a host of volunteer organizations, including the Harrisonburg City Public Schools Space Study Committee and School Resource Officers Task Force, co-chair for the International Women's Day Committee, board member for our Community Place, and the Welcoming Harrisonburg Council. I hope to gain your vote on November the 8th.
Now, Mr. Arena.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. So when people ask me why I chose to run for city council, the answer is really quite simple. It's about our future. Several years back, we all were kind of we were let down of the need for a second high school. It was kind of, brought to the public forefront. And so I began to do some research, and what I found was that it was about a decade too late. The more I kept digging, the more I realized we didn't have the housing affordability, we didn't have the transportation, we didn't have the mental health care resources that we needed. And so with that being said, I decided to enter the race. My wife and I grew up here in the Valley. We moved to Colorado for about 10 years, and then when we decided to move back east, we chose Harrisonburg because we wanted to have our kids be in a Spanish-English immersion program, and we thought that the friendly city was the best place for that. And so with the loving support of my wife, I've been drawn into public service. I care very much about housing affordability for everybody and fighting inflation, education, resources for mental health care, the mental health care crisis, supporting our first responders, and supporting our teachers and educators and students. Thank you.
Mr. Nagel.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming. I appreciate it, and thank you to the sponsors as well. My name's Rick Nagel. I'm an independent candidate for City Council. And I decided to run because over the past few years, I've seen that City Council is not delivering results for the people of Harrisonburg. I lived in Northern Virginia, a little background about myself. I lived in Northern Virginia for about 20 years. And my background is law enforcement, public policy, and law. So I've done that for many, many years. I've seen how legislation works. I've seen how public policy is put together. My platform consists of affordable housing, education, higher paying jobs, and public safety. Affordable housing, there's currently 4,000 people on the affordable housing waiting list, and there's 5,000 units under capacity. Education, we're at an 88% graduation rate, lower than the state average. Higher paying jobs, the average salary is about $45,000 in Harrisonburg compared to $61,000 at the state level. And of course, public safety, we're 20% down on police officers. So that is me, Rick Nagel, independent candidate for city council, and thank you for coming today.
And now Councilman Jones.
Good evening, everybody. There you go. It's still in Virginia. Let's talk to each other. Hey, my name's Chris Jones. I was born and raised in Danville, Virginia, right on the border of North Carolina and Virginia, but I moved to Harrisonburg in 1996 when I started college, and I fell in love with the place. I've been a servant leader ever since, whether it was in the SGA or some student ambassador organization, or the local NAACPs, or the community, or the campus NAACPs. Found ways to lead, found ways to give back, found ways to help. And that's my goal, that's what I want to continue to do. I'm a father, I'm a dad, I've got 4 kids, 2 in the school system right now, 2 that are in college. I'm married, and my wife works from home. She's been in Harrisonburg pretty much all of her life, raised in North Carolina a little bit. But we love this town. Harrisonburg's great. Are there things we need to fix? Sure. There's things we need to fix with every single one of us. But for the most part, we live in a fantastic place. I really don't understand the doom and gloom that I hear sometimes when I hear people describing our town. I mean, take a look at your property values. Take a look at the peace and the quiet that we have in most cases. Are there things that pop up that scare us? Are there issues that happen that terrify us, that give us questions for the future? Sure. And I think together we can build a better Burg. We've got a great plan that we started, but we need more input. And all I am is a conduit of that input. I don't run the show, I run the show with you. We work together. And I look forward to working with you for 2 more years. Thank you.
We now move to our moderated discussion section. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the question. We will then facilitate candidates responding and engaging with each other, with candidates getting 45 seconds to respond if they choose. The order for your questions was determined by random selection of names. Mr. Nagel, this first question is for you. The city conducted a housing study showing affordable housing as a major problem, and according to the ARPA public input findings, Harrisonburg residents are very concerned, not just about affordability, but quality housing. In the last year, the council has approved developments aimed at people with a variety of incomes. What is your assessment of the city council's approach to housing, and what would you most like to see the next council do on this issue?
Thank you so much for the question. Yes, that study in 2010, it was admirable, and it was to end homelessness as we know it in Harrisonburg. Well, that hasn't happened. Homeless population has nearly doubled in the 11 years that it was supposed to be taken care of. So I think there's a lot of things to do with homelessness. I think we have to talk about some mental health and substance abuse issues with the homeless, and get them into the right tracks to take care of that. Actually, our former city manager said a low barrier shelter for the homeless is not within best practices unless you have a pathway getting folks into affordable housing. So that's what we have to do, and that's what we have to focus on, and that's what I will focus on when I'm elected on November 8th to City Council. Thank you.
We encourage the candidates to engage each other on this question.
Okay.
So I want to say that in 2018, the current city council did a comprehensive plan, and they set aside 10 parcels of land designated for for great places to build the houses that we needed for everybody in Harrisonburg. So Councilman Jones, Why haven't we built on those spots yet?
Sure, I'm glad you brought me into the conversation. City council doesn't build housing. It's a private sector thing. I see my Republican friends in the audience, I see my Democrat friends in the audience, and I see independents in the audience. And I think we all know that you can't make the private business sector do what they don't wanna do. And so it's extremely important that we build incentives and that we come up with a comprehensive plan that allows those individuals to receive benefit so that they want to make that investment. And at the end of the day, it's what it boils down to. And so ultimately, because I heard them go back to 2010, and I mean, I wasn't around in 2010, but in 2018, but we had another housing study. And it actually showed that there is a shift in housing that needs to happen in order to create space. But the poor will have with us always. That's what the scriptures say. And it's our duty to take care of those people who have less. And so I'm proud that we're building all the shelter. I'm happy to help people.
Am I allowed to respond?
Let's hear from Mr. Fleming first.
So just to get clarity, I think we're probably a little confused on the process. You asked a question, we all kind of get a turn on. Okay, just check. So, we had a housing study done in 2019, I believe, and we have both an affordable and an attainable housing crisis, and they're different. But housing advocates, our experts, our business community, economists, residents agree on what's needed, and that's an increased supply of housing. So there are two different things here we're dealing with. Affordable housing, that's really for folks with the lowest incomes and the most vulnerable. And Rick's right, we have a waiting list of 4,000 people. I chair the Harrisburg Redevelopment Housing Authority, and that's our waiting list. We have now maybe 100 vouchers that we can go towards that. That is certainly not enough. But affordable housing, this is the type of subsidized housing possible through the partnerships with housing agencies like HRHA, Habitat for Humanity, Mercy House. It's really not possible without those type of subsidies and partnerships. The other part, the attainable housing, Chris is right. This is a private developer thing that we need to encourage in Harrisonburg. As the person probably the most experienced and working knowledge on this here, this is what I'm going to tackle when I'm on city council.
Ms. Robinson.
I was gonna say, I didn't think I was gonna be able to get in there. Affordable housing isn't just about a place to sleep, it's about security and quality of life. I would argue that Harrisonburg is on the right track in terms of affordable housing. Of course, we wouldn't be able to solve it all today because it's a multi-pronged approach. I argue that homelessness, income security, affordable housing, transportation, clean energy are all so intrinsically intertwined that we can't have one discussion without the other. So we do need more mixed-use housing. We need to have developments in areas of the city where we can consider different modes of transportation. Life is filled with green spaces and less parking spaces.
Candidates, let me follow up on this line of questioning about housing. Rental housing is something that the city has some domain over in terms of regulations of what qualifies as quality rental properties. I know from reading the ARPA public input findings that there were some people in our community who had very questionable concerns about the quality of rental housing. What would you, as the city council, like to see done about improving quality rental properties at an affordable price for Harrisonburg community members?
So I haven't actually seen that part of the study that looked at that, but I wouldn't disagree that we have issues with quality of rental housing in the city. And again, I think the real issue here is we haven't built additional affordable housing here in almost a decade. And if we want to meet that need, we have to fill that supply. We also do have to get incentives for folks, for developers to come here and build additional housing that's attainable for folks, working class folks, workforce development here. So that's, but both those are parts of the strategy we have to work on.
I think we also gotta make sure that we pay attention to what's actually happening in the economy. Okay, we approved the project over on Lucy Drive. That was an affordable housing project. We approved a higher end project near the movie theater. We approved a project on Reservoir, we approved a project on Peach Grove, we approved a project off of 33. None of them are being built. You know why? Look at supply, look at demand, the demand on lumber, the demand on the cost of goods and services, and the cost that it takes to actually have goods brought in. These are all projects that were approved even before 2020 started. However, when that March hit, it shifted the world. Now, the cost of land and the cost of my house and your house has went through the roof. I couldn't afford to move out of my own house and buy it again. So therefore, you see a lot of private developers slow down, put the brakes on things, and are reinvested in the properties that they have. And so I think you're gonna start to see a trend of that as the cost of supplies and the cost of labor to go down.
Mr. Daigle?
If I may, I just have 2 points to make. Going back to Chris's point about developers. The developers I talk to are burdened. You need to lower the barrier to allow them to build in the city. The cost is so prohibitive, they don't want to build in the city. And when they do decide to build, they are nitpicked by the Office of Community Development on every little thing they do. I know builders who have lost millions of dollars on projects to keep these buildings. Number two, I'll give you an innovative idea here about rent. Let's base the instead of basing when taxes increase, it's because of the fair market value of the real estate. For people that want to provide affordable housing, let's do it based on the rent, so the rent doesn't constantly keep increasing. Because I hear that from people as well. The rent keeps going up, it's too high, we can't afford it.
Ms. Robinson and then Mr. Leonard.
The problem that I see here in the city is that development, like Chris just talked about, isn't occurring, and neither is redevelopment. And a lot of that has to do with the lack of the city updating the current zoning ordinances, and that's in the works. Phase 1 has already started. What we can do as a city council is incentivize in different ways so that developers will want to come in and do things in our city, develop, build structures, and keep the rent at a low rate so that people can afford to get into housing and stay into housing. So development needs to be increased. We need to figure out and work together as a team on city council to figure out how we do that. It's all about how we work together to reach the solutions and getting the community members at the table so that they can add in their input and help us to face this crisis.
I mean, everybody up here is right, but it really boils down to, do we have houses for people to move into that, you know, do we have the inventory? If we have the inventory, housing costs go down, property taxes are spread around, and, you know, I hear all this that's incentivizing. Why haven't we done that? Why haven't we done that already? And so that, you know, that's gonna be one of my top priorities, is inviting quality builders to come to our city and build in places where we've already designated we want them to build.
I think these are all great ideas, but at the end of the day, you can't make the builder put his shovel in the dirt. Once he buys the land, has his own, and gets it approved, even with the incentive, it doesn't have to necessarily make them move. And that's the part I think that people are missing. And so when we look and say, well, why isn't this the case? Why isn't this the case? Because the profit's not there. And if we can find a place in which those builders are able to lower their profit to help to satisfy this need, then it'll happen. It's the same reason why any business does business in these United States of America. And so it's almost like, you know, delusion of grandeur sometimes when we pontificate about, hey, this is how I would like it to be. Well, quite honestly, it's not realistic. You've got to work with the chips that you have. And quite honestly, until we can get the folks that have things approved on the bills, because we only have 17.4 square miles. We don't have a lot of land in the city to work with. Until we can get those folks that have things locked up and approved to actually build, we're probably going to be in this state for a while. That's just the reality.
I'll have to cut us off there. Now we turn our attention away from this issue and toward policing. Mr. Renick, you'll start off this next round. In light of the recent high-profile shootings in the city, crime came up as a topic in Tuesday's City Council meeting. Is Harrisonburg properly equipped to handle this issue?
So yes and no. I mean, as it's been alluded to, we're down 20% of our officers. That's a problem. And I know that's a problem around the country, but we can fix that here. We can pay our officers more. When an officer can go to the town of Dayton and make more money than he does here and do a quarter of the workload, he's gotta provide, he or she's gotta provide for their family as well. So while we gave them a very nice raise, a long overdue raise, city council did a great job taking care of city employees this past year, and I think they even gave them a one-time bonus, and I applaud them for that. But what a lot of people don't realize is they also gave themselves a raise, and that raise was a 50% raise. Okay?
What is the money? Because percentage is always out there. What's
It's
the
$6,000 raise a year
on top of?
on top of 12. That's a 50% raise. Yeah. Okay.
Divided by the hours that you put in.
How many hours you put in, Chris? If you're gonna bring up hours, how many hours you put in?
Candidates, hold on, let's let Mr. Renick finish, and then you'll all get a chance to
You have this.
to offer your
I'm not gonna go over my time.
Mr. Nagel.
This is to the question, right?
Yes,
About
please.
law enforcement, okay. Well, as a former police officer, I didn't make a lot of money. Harrisonburg police don't make a lot of money. As a matter of fact, they can go to Bridgewater. I know Marshall mentioned Dayton, but they can go to Bridgewater, and the Bridgewater salary for an experienced police officer is $58,000. So it's much higher. We also have to reduce that 20% attrition rate. And you do that by having a recruiter who's a mentor. When you get people into the pipeline, stay in touch with them, stay in contact with them, and also people who are interested in being police officers. And you also have to cast the net far and wide. Go out of state, recruit the best and the brightest who are really interested in bringing them here to Harrisonburg. So that's what we need to do. We have to look at the whole recruiting process, as well as just create an atmosphere so police don't feel like they're not wanted and don't want to come to Harrisonburg.
Mr. Carney and then Mr. Robinson.
So when we recruit and invest in our officers, we want to retain them. We need to make sure they can set roots in our community. That's how we build a responsive, connected, and effective force. So like with many things in Harrisonburg, housing is a problem for recruiting and retaining our officers. And when they're not officers, they're moms and dads, they're neighbors, they're volunteers in our city. So we really need them rooted here. And so, yes, salary is an issue. We need to make sure we're paying them a salary that's going to keep them here. But there are other things we can potentially do. And one is a home ownership support program. That's something we can step into as a city. But we have a strong department that's willing to engage. They do community policing, they do mental illness crisis teams. 90% of them have been trained on mental health and de-escalation. We need to keep that investment. We're on the right track. Gun violence has gone up. Meth use has gone up in this city in the last 5 years. That's a problem. But with this police department, our police data shows that the last 5 years, our overall crime rate has gone down. So to keep that, we need to keep our officers here.
Ms. Robinson.
Nationwide, violence is on the rise, and so is the shortage of police officers. Police departments are fighting the stigma of bad police officers, point blank, and lack of accountability. What we need to focus on here in the city is building mutual trust between police agencies and communities. That's the most effective way of keeping crime to a minimum. We need police officers here. We need the violence to go down here. We need to act as good stewards of our community and do what we can to help people want to apply, want people, help tell our neighbors who are Black and brown that we need to get away from the stigma that is associated with being a police officer. We need more police officers of color in the ranks. And hopefully they will come.
Ms. Robinson, maybe hold your mic there for a second, because I want to follow up on what you were just saying. Candace, this is a question for you, but maybe Ms. Robinson, I'll ask you to answer first, which is, it seems like we need to hire more officers from diverse backgrounds that reflect what the city of Harrisonburg is. Ms. Robinson, I feel like that's what you were just talking about. But candidates, I'd love for you to help explore this question about how can we hire officers from more backgrounds. What would you do to encourage police officers from diverse backgrounds to come and work for the city of Harrisonburg?
That's something that I've thought about in depth. And I think in order for the stigma to change, that we need to start working with children at a younger age. Right now, we have a snitch mentality in many of the brown and Black communities, and people just don't want to be involved in an agency that has a history of causing such harm and death to our community. So we really need to focus on making a police officer a good job to have. To be hired by a police officer is something to, as a police officer, is something not to be ashamed of, but as a respectable career. And that needs to start when children are younger.
We'll go Mr. Jones, since you had your microphone ready, and then Mr. Arena.
Yeah, we've got to separate our emergency services from everyone else. I'm all about equity, but they're putting their life on the line a lot differently when they're getting on top of a fire truck or getting inside of a police car. It's a little bit different job than the rest of our city staff. And so while we want to make sure we're fair and we're equitable with pay, we've got to come up with stronger incentives. We've got to fulfill everything that we decided to do in our diversity hiring policy to make sure we're reaching out. But again, the world has shifted and the world has changed. This idea that we can just cast a net and we're going to bring in the fish is erroneous. The fact of the matter is the level of service on every industry has completely changed over the last 3 years. And so we've got to regroup our expectations. But the big thing is for us to manage ourselves with a higher level of civility and respect. And as long as we can become a more civil and respectful Harrisonburg, it will actually attract more police officers.
Mr. Renner?
You can clap if you want to clap for me. I agree with both of them. I mean, they both bring very good points up. The only thing I would add is those people of different backgrounds that we talk about, that we want them to come here, they're not out there because, as Monica said, they're not growing up wanting to be police officers. So we need to figure out why and help encourage them to do that. And then the other part of why police officers, I think, leave Harrisonburg, yes, it is the money, but it's also has to do with culture. And by that I mean that we've had three police chiefs in the last 5 years. I'm not gonna say anything bad about any of them or any of the situations, but the reality is you have to have consistency at the top. And if you don't have consistency at the top, it's gonna follow through to the rest of everybody.
Mr. Nagel, Mr. Clement.
So I have to respond to Mr. Jones when he said, the whole casting the net far and wide or whatever with recruiting. So that's what we need. We need innovative ideas. And Mr. Jones has been on city council for many, many, many years. And why are we still having these problems? So I'd like to know, if you're not going to cast the net far and wide, then what are you going to do to reduce that 20% attrition rate?
Same thing that Centera Hospital's doing. They're down nurses. The same thing that
Hold
happens
on,
when you
Mr.
go-
Jones,
Hold on.
let's-
I didn't
no.
get to go on the first time when you went police.
Hold,
The same thing that you did when we look at what's happening nationwide. I mean, let's be realistic, Rick. Now, let's be honest. If you go to any restaurant right now, are you gonna get the same level of service? If you go to any business or any city, you go on vacation and pay top dollar, what are you gonna receive as level of service? People have pulled out of the market because of the Great Resignation. Ultimately, what we're gonna have to do is what Ms. Robinson has actually said, is actually birth and recruit from a much younger age, because the market has shrunk. For those individuals that are between 25 and 45, they pulled out of the market, and most folks 55 and up, a lot of those folks retired early. So the people aren't there.
moderator.
So candidates, I wanna make sure, we have several other questions and I wanna make sure that we get to them all. But I do wanna provide a moment of fact check.
So the approved proposal was for a 5% mid-year salary increase for all city employees. Also approved in the proposal was a one-time bonus of $3,000 for full-time employees and a $1,500 for part-time employees. The ordinance increases the salary of each council member to $18,000 per year and the mayor's salary to $20,000. Council members currently receive $12,000 annually and the mayor receives $15,000. Salaries were last adjusted June 1st, 2004, according to the city attorney, Chris Brown.
I think there was some dispute over what the percentage equals into actual dollars, so we wanted to make sure that we clarified that. Okay, so candidates, I want to thank you for the discussion on policing. I know it's an incredibly hot topic, but I want to make sure that we move to another topic and talk this time about transportation. Mr. Jones, I think we'll have you start by answering this question.
I'd like to remind the candidates that when you are not speaking, to just click the button and turn it off really quickly so it doesn't echo for our live stream. You can just click it. It's okay. Never mind. I'm sorry. Technical stuff. Thank you, candidates, for the discussion on that deep issue. I know you guys have been dying to talk about that. I'd like to move us to another topic. Mr. Jones, we'll have you start by answering this question. What is one change you believe would most improve public transportation in Harrisonburg, and what would you do to implement it?
We've got a pick back up on what I just said. The great resignations really cost us. You know, those individuals, especially in that 40, 50, 60-year-old range that typically drove our school buses, or individuals that wanted that part-time work, that desire hasn't been there anymore since COVID. Folks have kind of readjusted their clock and their schedule based on how they want to use their time. However, if we stop as a community and say, hey, I've got to give up a little time. I've got to give up some time for after-school care to flow in a better manner. I've got to give up some time in order for youth sports to happen. I've got to give up some time to make sure kids get home a lot earlier in the day, because right now, routes are running a lot longer, but we need the workforce. And at the end of the day, we've got to figure out a way to pull people in, yet we still want to maintain our tax rate. We can't just pay through the roof, right, and still not deliver a high-quality service. And so it's going to take us as a community to say, hey, we've got to come together to actually help our children. That's the biggest issue that I found with transportation. We want to increase routes, we want to do some things to help with economic development, but quite honestly, we need the service for our children, for after-school care, and to maintain a high-quality service of education and to help Harrisonburg City Public Schools. So we need the help, guys.
Mr. Fleming.
So for most, transportation is the second highest household expense, right after housing. And one of the major challenges I hear, and I know workers have said, our employers are saying, is that this is a problem for recruiting and retaining staff, how to get folks to and from work. So we're a growing city. We have to rethink how to address our public transportation. We also have to rethink our general transportation infrastructure to be clean and active and accessible. So Chris is right. After the pandemic, public transportation took a wallop. And new ideas are starting to emerge. They lost a lot of money. And one of the ideas is microtransit. In many cities, this is starting. This is small scale, on-demand, low-fee transportation, a little bit like a public Uber. And we also do need to reduce our traffic and congestion and the associated high costs for that. And some of that is associated with building on our functional infrastructure for biking and pedestrian work. One of our sponsors is Central Valley Bike Coalition. They don't do just biking. This is our biking and pedestrian infrastructure. And when we increase that, make that more available for folks, we can actually lower the congestion on the street and give folks more ways to get to and from work and the places they need to get to.
Ms. Robinson?
In order for transportation to improve here in the city, we need to focus on a few things here, and smart and sustainable street design would be one of the areas. They help shape the neighborhoods point blank. It promotes safety and mobility. With transit-oriented, did I do that? Transit-oriented development regionally, not just locally. We need walkable communities. We need to handle parking management in a different way. It's an obstacle, especially when you're talking about compact development and high-density zoning. It's a high cost, and it's a space requirement that doesn't always need to be in place. And then also sustainable transportation planning. It needs to be a part of the comprehensive approach. Transportation planning, land use, environmental planning, they all need to happen together in order for us to have a better transportation system going in the city.
Any other candidates?
I do wanna just add real quick, and I'll let you go, Marshall. Really quickly, some partnership with the county, I think would be extremely innovative. In fact, if we could start to work with the Shenandoah Valley partnership overall, come up with our own agency. It builds a greater connection. Folks, there's folks that are out there that living in the city, working in the county, folks in the county need to get to the city. We gotta come up with some more efficient ways to partner with our neighbors as well. So I wanted to put that out there. Go ahead, Marshall.
You read my notes, didn't you? I was just gonna bring up the county. You know, the county is right on the edge of our city, and we do need to work with them. The other thing that we need to do, again, is focus back on affordability. More houses equals, more money in people's pockets. And then, they might not have to take public transportation, which would alleviate the burden on the thin system that we have now. So it all goes back to being an affordable place to live in the city. And so there's a lot of things that need to be done to tackle it. And, we're on the right path right now, but we just need to continue.
Let me ask a quick follow-up question because we have about 2 minutes left to talk transportation. As a city council member, would you be willing to spend more money on public transportation if it means that we can expand bus routes for additional weekend routes and at alternate times to encourage more riders from different locations in the city to ride the bus system?
Definitely.
Thank you for your short answer.
Ridership isn't necessarily the best way to measure the impacts, the economic impact, and the value and the benefit of our public transportation system. So I think we need to think of it in different ways of what the benefit our public transportation system provides to our employers, to our businesses in the area, to our city schools. So yes, we need to rethink and invest in it, no doubt.
Mr. Irvine?
If it makes sense to do, then yes, I would definitely.
I would add that growing up here in the city, when JMU went home, everything closed down for us teenagers here locally. We couldn't get anywhere. Our quality of life changed. So now it would be wonderful to have more bus routes running at different times, all the time, even when JMU students go home.
Mr. Nagel?
Well, I think it's something we can look at. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I'd like to see a little more information, maybe budgetary issues as well. But I'd like to continue on, if I could, into my portion of the question with transportation. So what I would like to do is see the city partner with an electric bicycle company. I talk to developers that build, and they always seem to get into an argument with the city over parking spaces. So they want more parking spaces. The city wants more parking spaces. They want more parking spaces, the city wants less. So if we do electric bicycles, maybe give a different option for people to do that. Also, walks to nowhere. You know, I hear people all the time saying, we have sidewalks, but they go nowhere. I mean, to go to transportation, if you don't have the infrastructure. So you gotta build in the route.
Ms. Robinson, we'll have you start this next one. What's the city council's role in creating more jobs in the private sector and bringing in employers with higher paying jobs?
I think the city council's responsibility is economic development. Unless we get businesses to come here to the valley and to operate here in the valley, we will not have an increase of jobs. We need people to come here. We need to have programs set up to make sure they stay here. We need to support businesses once they reach Harrisonburg. And we need to make sure that we market this city as a bed of cultural diversity. That people can come here, they can move from various areas of the country, and they can find the same places of worship, the same groups of people, the same traditions that are available in the places that they moved from. So we definitely need to focus on economic development in order to make sure that jobs stay thriving in the city of Harrisonburg. And according to how numbers are looking right now, I mean, I think it looks pretty good if we can just get people to move here.
So the average income in Harrisonburg is relatively low, and that's a real challenge for a growing city like ours. But we also have a really strong, stable, and diverse economy. Varied businesses here, and that's really unique among Virginia cities. So this is what gives us really a great ability to attract new businesses here, and we have been successful in doing that. And one of the reasons is because we meet the criteria as a good place to invest. One of the biggest reasons for that is we have a well-trained supply of talented folks living here, ready to work. That's really our biggest calling card. You know, our greatest opportunity, though, for job growth is our local small businesses, our entrepreneurs. And that is our economic engine in Harrisonburg. Now, to move forward, what can we do in City Council? Well, we have great partners in Harrisonburg. We have the Chamber of Commerce, we have Harrisonburg Downtown Renaissance, we have the Shenandoah Valley Partnership. We have our Community Economic Development Department that provides leadership and information to City Council on the things that need to happen. And what we're hearing from employers, what they need here is housing, transportation, and daycare. That's what they need for their employees. So when we work to resolve those things, we're going to find that salaries are going to increase and more jobs are going to come to Harrisonburg.
Mr. Jones, and then Mr. Rennie.
Thank you very much. Economic development is going well in Harrisonburg. I'm pleased at we're so resilient coming out of COVID. We made sure we stepped up using CARES Act funding and other fundings to support our local businesses so that they didn't shut their doors, so that most of them are still here and thriving. Myself, our Small Business Development Center, Harrisonburg Downtown Renaissance, and our economic development staff, Pierce McGill and Brian Scholl, we worked together and we built a Black and Brown Business Growth Program. We partnered with the Chamber of Commerce's Diversity Business Council. We partnered with other folks, and we were able to raise funds from the private community to go back into those Black and Brown businesses because 40% of them were not going to sustain or survive. However, they're still thriving and growing in new businesses. In fact, I was at a leasing meeting today at lunch with several Black and Brown businesses looking to find new space in Harrisonburg to grow. Also work with tons of other economic development folks that are looking not just for incentives, but ways to capitalize on the growth that's already happening in Harrisonburg. But to Danny's point, one of the ones he didn't mention that we were talking about in the resiliency group is the workforce. And a big part of it is gonna be retaining our JMU, EMU, Bridgewater, and all the students that are up and down the valley. We've got 10 colleges and universities in the valley. Retaining some of that talent and keeping that workforce pool will help to offset the differences that we're finding when we look at transportation, housing, and childcare issues. But economic development is going great in Harrisonburg, and it's because of you, and I appreciate it.
Mr. Rennan?
So this is a really tough issue to tackle. I mean, there's a ton of different angles to go with this. But first of all, as Chris alluded, there's not much space to have these businesses come. So we need to figure out innovative ways to put them in our city. You know, there's not a lot of vacancies in businesses. If you go downtown, it's pretty full, and then that's a great thing. But the biggest thing that I hear from people that I talk to, from business owners, is that they're moving out of the city. And that's because, in their words, it's too difficult to run a business with taxes, with permitting, with all that kind of stuff. And again, I've been out listening to a lot of people in the community, and I'm here trying to share what I hear from them.
Mr. Nagel and then Ms. Robinson.
Thank you. Yes, we need to attract more tech jobs and manufacturing jobs so we can retain our JMU students and other college graduates. I talk to young people, they say, Rick, I can't stay in Harrisonburg because there's not enough pay. They go to other jurisdictions. Manufacturing jobs, there's a lot of good manufacturing jobs out there for folks that don't want to go to college. And to Marshall's point, I talk to business owners, some of my best friends are business owners that have nothing, they want to leave. They want to pull up stakes and leave because the default taxes and things like that are just too high. And they don't want to expand. So that's what we need to do, and expand in a pro-business environment. I've even been told that the climate here is very bad for business. So, that's my focus would be tech and manufacturing so we can keep people right here.
Ms. Robinson.
I think this is less about what or who we can bring in from the outside and more about what we can grow from the inside. And I think to Councilman Jones' point is that we already have launched Harrisonburg. We have BQ, we have the Shenandoah Valley, small business development. We do not need to recreate programs to make sure that JMU and EMU and other students across the valley stay here. We just need to make sure we continue those partnerships with the university. And people will stay here and be a part of our workforce. But economic development in the valley right now, I think is good.
One last question on jobs. Are there types of jobs or businesses that you do not want to incentivize coming to Harrisonburg? No comment.
Can you give me an example?
I don't know. You give me an example.
I can't think of any. I mean, you gotta look at all the different angles of inviting a business to come. What I believe a city council person is supposed to do is do what's best for the city. And so you need to really look at what businesses do wanna come in and what businesses you wanna invite to come in, and then make a decision. And it's about the people who are bringing those businesses too. I don't think you can make a blanket statement saying, I will not have X in the city.
May I think somebody to talk about promoting more big box stores versus promoting more small businesses? Is there a mix or a blend that city council should be looking for when incentivizing businesses to come into Harrisonburg?
I was just gonna say that with a city as diverse as Harrisonburg, it wouldn't say much about us if we tried to limit the type of businesses that come here. Now, I'm not touching on your next question. I was just thinking more intently about the original question. We have people from all over the world who end up in this beautiful city, and we don't know what their needs are. So if we were to prejudge and say, we don't need that business here, and then we, in turn, eliminate their chances of eating the foods that they're used to eating, having the products that they're used to having, what would that say about us as a welcoming city?
Mr. Nagel?
Yeah, I think you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, but I will say that small businesses are the economic generators of this country and this city. We have to support small businesses. They're the job creators, and they need the support, and they need as much help as they can from city government. So that's the bottom line. We talked about businesses wanting to leave, but we have to support our small businesses because they are the ones that create the jobs and the employment opportunities.
You know, it's funny, I'm sitting here listening, and you can't have it both ways. You can't say we're full and then everybody's leaving. You know, at some point, things become a myth or urban legend or things that people say in order to sensationalize the news or sensationalize the topic. You know, the number one reason why most graduates don't stay in the valley, it's the social life is what I hear. I've never heard anyone say, it's not safe, it's not clean. Especially when they're younger, they need less space to live. I typically found that it was the social life. Harrisonburg is Virginia's #1 and first culinary district because of the unique cuisines and all the private businesses that we have in downtown. And the governor gave us that award. My point is this, yes, we should have big box retailers because folks have needs, but do we need those? And those can be franchised. There are tons of franchises out there that folks own in Harrisonburg. Those are still small businesses. But at the end of the day, what we need to do is make sure that we're shopping local and buying from entrepreneurs. That's the big key.
Mr. Fleming, last comment.
Yeah, well, I'll make it short because I think folks have said a lot of what I'd say. So yeah, small business, local businesses, that's what energizes our economy. We have a good economy here. We have businesses staying here. You know, when other retailers are shutting down across the country, folks who are at our Valley Mall, they're staying open here in Harrisonburg. We are the shopping spot for the Valley in parts of West Virginia here. They come here. That's what happens in Harrisonburg. So we have a strong economy. If someone wants to move here, I'm thinking it's likely because there's a need to fill that gap. And so that's what we look at. Is this filling a need? Well, if it is, then that's what residents, are saying. We need this done. So would I prevent someone filling a need? Probably not.
Okay, the final question. Mr. Fleming, you will begin by answering this question. Harrisonburg has recently made strides in using clean energy, like getting more electric vehicles for city use. How will you support clean energy initiatives in the future? And what ideas do you have to create even more sustainable systems and clean energy in Harrisonburg?
So Harrisonburg has emerged as a clean energy leader and a sustainable planning leader in Virginia. Now, sustainability covers a broad range of stuff. And so we have Harrisonburg created this environmental action plan, which I think is in phase 1, that started in January 2020. It looks at building use, land use, transportation, conservation things. But on the clean energy side, we're actually the leading solar city in Virginia. Now it's about 3% of what we produce. That's not enough. But right now, we are the leading clean energy producer in Virginia as a percent. One of those reasons is because we have the Harrisonburg Electric Commission. That's our local utility that we own. It's well run and gives us the ability to step into this role like other cities really can. And it's partly because of the dedication and expertise of a really strong clean energy community here. So we have our new solar farm. I think it flipped a switch maybe 2 weeks ago. We have Bluestone Elementary School that is in the process of going solar. Probably have some other school buildings looking to go solar. The other way we're going to step into clean energy is having our city buildings go solar. City Council made some moves on that last night to push that forward. So we're going to continue being a clean energy leader in Virginia, both to protect our environment, to create equity, because we do have to build in equity, and then to lower our costs.
Mr. Lee.
Nothing else wants to go, okay. So my wife and I decided we wanted to get solar panels recently, and we thought it would be expensive, but we had no clue how expensive they really are. And that's a big hurdle, especially in these times when you want to do the right thing and have clean energy, personally to do your part. Now the federal government provides about a 1/3 tax refund tax rebate on that, which is awesome, but that still leaves a lot of money. I would seriously look at some type of local incentive to do, to entice the rest of us here to do more of our part for clean energy. Before we start adding anything else, we need to make sure that things work, that we have already. So, partnering with the government, partnering with local people to, incentivize them to go clean.
Ms. Robinson and then Mr. Jones.
We do have a well-run electric municipality in the city, we do, but we are on the hook for, until 2031 was Dominion Energy. We are paying Dominion Energy, or getting all of our energy, 100% of our energy from Dominion. We need to start making some gradual changes. We need to start producing our own clean, renewable energy here in the city, so that as we get closer to 2031, we can start producing our own energy and lessening our ties with Dominion Energy. That's one thing that definitely needs to happen.
Mr. Jones.
I'm just gonna say that there are a lot of programs out there that can help our asset limited, income constrained and employed, as well as those that are fully and gainfully employed. You know, weatherization is a big thing that we need to do in everyone's home, if you haven't done it recently. There are more energy efficient ways that we can operate, in addition to solar, in addition to greater things that we can do as a municipality. There are things we need to do on an individual level to help folks to have a more efficient home. But sometimes the information's out there, but it's hard for folks to get because they're just working hard, you know, day to day, trying to get food to mouth and foot to work. But if we can come up with some ways to get that information out on a greater scale, whether that's working with our state agencies, working with HEC as well, getting that information out versus just tacking it up on a bulletin board, or maybe having a whisper or an announcement once upon a time in church. We gotta get that information out a little bit more. And I think that, in combination with the things that we've heard earlier, will help us to move forward.
Mr. Daigle.
I do scuba diving, and I see some of my friends out here that do diving as well. So I've been in the ocean and I've seen turtles eat plastic bags because they look like jellyfish, and that's very disturbing. So what I would like to see is the recycling contract come back. You know, that went away. And the whole gamut of the city budget, of all the millions that we spend, I think we can bring that back and incentivize people to be able to go down and put their recyclable material by the end of their driveway and have a truck come pick it up. Because most of my neighbors say, I stopped recycling because I don't want to go all the way to Beery Road anymore. So that's a big thing. And then also, I don't think we have to be careful with sustainability, you know, with the technology coming out. Take things, look at the technology and don't go from 0 to 100 on that. That was my big issue on that, is that let's look at the recycling contract and try to bring that back.
Mr. Daigle, you beat me to my follow-up question, which was about recycling. You know, while it's cheaper for the city to centralize its recycling in one location on Beery Road, it's difficult for people who don't have cars, and we've talked about transportation, to be able to recycle in the city, and that might mean that's a lot of people. What advice do you have for people who want to recycle but can't under the current system, or what is as a city council person would you do about this issue?
Well, I think we can, to hit a little bit on Chris's point, and I was gonna say that as well, is like public service announcements, get people to, you know, turn their thermostats down and things like that. For recyclable issues, if someone doesn't have a ride, hopefully they'll have a family member or a friend or a coworker that could take them, or, and it's really about, you know, a change in mentality. You know, one of these bottles put into the soil takes many years, and we know what comes out of the soil is our food. So I think we just have to encourage folks to recycle, because it is a serious issue, and hopefully they'll have friends, family, and even public transportation, like we alluded to be able to get out there. But I think the contract to incentivize is the way to do it.
The problem is, though, you gotta have folks that wanna buy your recycling. I mean, we gotta look at how the process actually works. So, yeah, it's convenient for us as the the top user to crush this bottle, put it in a plastic box, slide it down on the curb on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. But at the end of the day, where is it gonna go? And who's gonna buy that? And if the end user on the other end doesn't wanna purchase that, then there is no contract to revisit, there is nothing to look at, and it's completely inefficient. It makes zero sense, and you create more waste, because if the person that you sell it to dumps it into the ocean, we're back to the same problem that we originally had. So you've gotta be careful and look at that process all the way through. We didn't just happenstance to say, hey, let's end this contract. We have a new sustainability coordinator though, really proud of him. He's doing great work, and I believe he'll come up with some efficient ways to make life easier for us.
Ms. Robinson and then Mr. Arena.
I would encourage citizens to take advantage of the mobile recycling units. I know it's not right in front of at your curb, but it is at least closer to your neighborhood if you don't have transportation. So that's one option. And then also, each citizen needs to make a commitment to lead by example. And that means teaching our children the importance of recycling. That means recycling even when we don't want to recycle. And also, like we're doing at my job, going solar. Be the business in the community that puts those solar panels on the roof, that teaches the youth what it means to do away with storm runoff. There are many ways that we can teach the next generation that we are the stewards of the environment, and it's up to us to make sure they have a better future.
Mr. Arena and then Mr. Fleming.
Well, I was gonna make a public service announcement, but Monica already did that. So I will expand on that and say that the mobile recycling units are, I think, 4 or 5 days a week. And if you go to the city website, they're very easy to find. And so I would encourage all of you who aren't going to Beery Road to go and do that. So thanks for bringing that up, Monica.
Well, as far as the recycling contract, as I know, I don't think there's a recycling contract to renegotiate or get into, because they're not willing to do that. They have no place to take our recycling. So I think this puts it back to the city. And this is now our responsibility. What can we do? What can we step into? And I think there are some good ideas here. Education's a big part of this. Yeah, we need to reduce what we do. We need to provide potentially some easier places for folks to take their recycling. But is that gonna fill the gap from this contract? Maybe not. So what can we step into to increase recycling, make it easier for folks to have it at their curbside? I'm not sure what the cost of that is. I would ask the city public works to say, can you put together a budget for what that's gonna be? And then we can move from there.
Now, each candidate gets a 90-second closing statement or answers a final question. Councilman Jones, will you start us off? Closing statement. Closing statement or answers a final question? Just a closing statement.
That's a multiple choice.
I've been tough tonight, I tell you. Hey, thanks for putting this together. We appreciate it. You know, I closed my book. You got me on guard, but I like to say thank you. That's how I was raised. So, Shenandoah Valley, Bicycle Coalition, the Breeze, the Citizen, JMU overall, Dr. Diller, Zazaria, and Kayla, thank you for hosting us. And to Core Square Theater, thanks for being a good partner. JP is sitting in the back, so really appreciate you. And thank you to each of you for your excitement and your enthusiasm to want to run. People don't want to do it. You know, my closing statement is pretty quick and pretty simple. At the end of the day, you can have a lot of great ideas and things that you want to hope that the private sector will take care of. And you have limited things that you can do in government. The role of city council is to be that bridge and to figure out how we can pull more opportunity from the private sector and still provide tons of services from the city sector. That's the name of the game. There are a lot of things that we feel as though we want to do. There's a lot of great ideas. But at the end of the day, you've got to be able to find that balance of maintaining business, maintaining economic development, and still providing equitable services. This shouldn't be about politics. Basic things like water, electricity, how we're gonna operate, taking care of our children. This is what community is about. Let's work together to build community. We've been building a better Burg together over the last few years, and I think that we will do that well beyond me. I'd like to continue my term for the next 2 years to help finish out some projects and to help usher in maybe one of you all as a member of city council or two of these individuals. Thank you so much for the opportunity to let me serve over the last 8 years. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to hopefully serving you for 2 more years. Thank you very much.
My name is actually pronounced Zia, but thank you, Councilman Jones. Mr. Nagel?
Thank you so much. Now, we've spent about an hour up here talking, we've all talked, and there's a clear distinction. Status quo versus change. You want more of the same, or do you want change? You want to put the city into the future, or keep it the same? Affordable housing, 4,000 people on the waiting list. If you're okay with that, vote for the status quo. Education, the graduation rate is 88%. If you're okay with that, vote for the status quo. Higher paying jobs, we talked about that. They're not here. If you're okay with that, vote for the status quo. Finally, public safety, police, 20% attrition rate. If you're okay with that, vote for the status quo. But I would submit to you that's not good enough. We need to move Harrisonburg forward. Vote for Rick Nagel on November 8th, and that's exactly what I do. Thank you.
So I've been all over the city and I've listened to a lot of you, and I just want to say I hear your concerns. You know, you're tired of city council not listening to you, you're tired of them not acting on what they say they're gonna act on. You're tired of living in a city where housing is too high, where taxes are too high, where it costs too much to go out to eat, and I just wanna say I hear you. And I also hear that, you know, it's time to get politics out of local government. It's time to do that. You know, we don't have enough bus routes or sidewalks or bike paths. It's time to get politics out of city government, and I'm not gonna bring it there. What I will bring is I will fight inflation and cost of living. I will bring better education. I will support our first responders by prioritizing the budget to cater to them. I will support education by taking care of our teachers, by giving the students and teachers the resources that they need. And I will be an accessible and accountable representative. One thing I'm gonna promise you here tonight, if I'm faced with a decision and I don't think it's better for all of us, I will vote no. And if I think it is to the benefit of all of us, I will vote yes, even if I'm in the minority. Even if I'm in the minority. So I ask for your vote on November 8th. Marshall Lorenick, Harrisburg City Council, I won't let you down.
I don't see what's so bad about Harrisonburg. I don't want to recreate the wheel. I just want to keep making it better. Harrisonburg is a city with pressing needs and is also rich in untapped resources, especially human resources that come from diversity of life experiences, cultures, and perspectives. We can learn a lot from people who have come here from war zones and refugee camps. We can learn a lot from immigrants who have come here to work in our poultry industry and who are setting up new businesses. We can learn a lot from long-standing subgroups whose voices haven't been heard. We need to get these diverse voices into our governing processes. As a member of the City Council, I'm going to be asking 3 questions every time we make a decision. 1, did we support inclusivity by working with the people directly affected by our decision? 2, did we promote equity by working in culturally responsive ways? 3, are we working with sustainability in mind? So I ask you, Harrisonburg citizens, what is your vision for the city? Vote for me on November the 8th. And we won't recreate the wheel, but we damn sure will make it a better one.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Mr. Fleming?
Well, I want to thank all our sponsors here today. Thank you for putting this together. I want to thank you guys for showing up and folks who are watching and for taking time to listen to us and learn about these issues. You know, getting information about council candidates, local issues, it's not easy. This is the local issue. This is the local level, like Chris said. You know, this is schools, streets, parks, our water, critical supports and services, the things that affect the quality of our life. When you tackle these, I know you want someone with experience, with knowledge, with the relational skills to get this done. Coupled with a deep understanding of the history of this city and a passion for the city, I believe that's what you get with me. I'm not new to this. I'm not learning. This is not on-the-job training for me. I've been here doing this work. I've been standing side by side with many of you on these important issues, sometimes debating, resolving, creating solutions, the things you expect from someone on city council. So I'll say it again, I love this city. I love what we've created here together. I love it in so many ways. We're a leader and we're a model city. I love that so many of us are willing to show up here and tackle these hard issues. So whether I've earned your vote or not, I'll remain excited and committed to helping our community reach our highest potential.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming.
Let's give another round of applause to our candidates here. Thank you to all of you for being up here. Just a reminder, the 4 candidates on your left, on the left, are running for 2 seats on city council, and Mr. Jones is running for a seat also, but is running unopposed. So 2 different kinds of positions that you'll be voting for on November 8th. But I also again want to thank Shenandoah Valley Bicycle Coalition for helping us put this together, for the Breeze newspaper for their reporting and fact checking and putting these questions together, and also for the citizen who helped us also put this together. And thank you all for being here and being informed voters, because you're the ones who make democracy work. And thank you for being here and encouraging our candidates to run for city council. We'll have JMU Madison Center for Civic Engagement Democracy Fellows who will answer any questions that you might have about where to vote, how to vote, what's on the ballot, and who's on the ballot, although you probably ask the candidates yourselves. But they'll be in the back if you have any other questions, and certainly you can mingle around with the candidates afterwards. But thank you again to all of our audiences.